Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking me. Appreciate it.
All right. I'm very curious. So now it's Corey Weston, but you're going by Westin Blake for your
Yes, sir.
wrestling name. Where did the
Yes, sir.
Westin Blake come from?
It came from Blake. Came from I got two older brothers, and one's named Brian, the other one's named Blake. And so when I was pitching ideas for NXT when I first got to WWE, I wanted kind of like a stick with my family name. I know they weren't going to let me keep Weston or whatever because of course they want to trademark it. So that was one of the names I pitched. They went with Wesley Blake, and so that kind of, because all my life I've been called Wesley, Weston, and stuff like that. So it was very easy transition for when people were able to call my name. And then once I got released, I went with kind of my last name, but just changing the O to the I, just so I can have, now that's part of me, and it's a name that's very meaningful to me because it is my last name and it is my brother's name as well.
At the time, whether you're starting with WWE or the Funkin' Conservatory with the great Dory Funk Jr. in Central Florida, Ocala, or even now, did you think of any other names as well, or now you really just wanted to stick along those lines?
No, I mean, when you're coming up with names, I always felt like I'm always like, oh man, that would be a cool name, or that could be a cool name, or that, but I just wanted to get with a name that meant something to me, to where and that's where I came out. Once I got released, I just wanted to go that route, and wanted to go with a kind of my family name, just with like a little spin off on it. And so that was that's a name that I cherish and I really like.
And you made it easy.
Yeah.
And they say also it's also good to have something you're going to feel comfortable with. And I'm guessing too, just by listening to you talk about it and how proud you are of it, that was easy. Now you can relate to that name, and fans can relate to you more because that is part of your DNA, part of your name.
Oh, of course, man. And like you said, like once you get get comfortable with it, and now, and like I said, I always felt like if my name had some meaning, it had some substance, it had some something behind it, then it's easy for you to get behind something, a character or whatever you want to do. If you just get like a little bits and kind of yourself to it, you can attach yourself to it, and I think it can make you your brand and your product better.
Makes your brand and your product better. And you had success in NXT, and you spent 8+ years with WWE.
Yeah.
Anytime anyone gets released, I don't want to speak for anyone, but obviously that's a difficult time. But when you look back on it, 8+ years, that's not a bad run there. I mean, that's pretty good considering all the talents that never even made it there, or may have made it there and then left. What do you take away? How do you feel about your 8+ years there? What do you take away from there?
Those 8+ years I will cherish forever. I have nothing but great memories of being with WWE/NXT. It's where I met my wife. It's where we have our 2 kids going on to be our 3rd here in the next couple of weeks. The relationships I was able to have, in and outside the ring, the places I got to wrestle, these incredible memories and these incredible experiences, that I got to live through. I mean, wrestling has always been a love and a passion of mine, and I've always loved the business and I always had a passion for it. I always found this business to be so interesting, and so I just was drawn to it on just the travel and just like the kind of brotherhood with the girls and boys from the locker room and stuff like that, and just like the kinship. And it was always very fascinating to me. And so my 8 years in WWE, I will cherish, and I'm also going to use my experiences and my knowledge of that, of hopefully me succeeding towards the future.
Corey, what was it like for you when that day come and you were released, and just trying to navigate and handle all that?
Yeah, and like you said, when you get into WWE/NXT, your number one goal is to uh, put out the best product that you can, and to elevate yourself to where when you get to WWE, everyone wants to be a lifer. Everyone that wants well, at least I did in WWE. Everyone that gets there, they kind of want to be, they want that to be their legacy for the rest of their life is with WWE. Unfortunately, that wasn't my path. And of course, when after being with that company for 8 years, you kind of it stings, but it's almost like a blessing in disguise for me, because I've been able to these past 2 months get to spend great time with my wife and kids. I got to celebrate birthdays with them. I've got to take my little girl to school. I've got to see my son grow up and have his first steps and kind of start talking, and it really opens up and it drives me more now, because now I can be more creative, and now I can put out my own kind of content and use stuff from WWE that techniques or whatever I can in the past to kind of help me propel to the future, the future and branding promoting that I want to do.
I think in a positive that with their brand and their platform and being able to be a part of that lends itself when things like this happen, that so many people know who you are now.
Right.
And that hopefully will open more doors to you as well.
Right. Yeah.
Want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. When I got the call and I was released, they told me, that, they're doing it because of budget cuts. So, but they told me that kind of it's a swinging door, so when I left WWE, I felt like we were on good terms. That just so happened that I was, someone on the list that, that was going to be the budget cut. And so when that happens, I told them, I was like, listen, I'm going to go out there and make myself most marketable I can for myself. And I'm going to go out there and prove my value and try to elevate my game and try to elevate my status. That way, who knows, with, a couple of years, 6 months or whatever it is, they may want me back in a more predominant fashion. So, and if they don't, hopefully whatever company that I'm working with, I'm helping that company elevate to what their promotion is, and hopefully it's elevating my game as well.
Now, Corey, you mentioned about spending time with family. I'm looking, were those pictures that your children drew for you behind you? And how was your Father's Day then yesterday?
Father's Day was great. I said my 4-year-old daughter made these. She paints a lot better than I do, so she always gets a kick when we get to hang stuff up on the wall. That's what, when she came home from school, she was just so happy and so proud that she got to paint these. That that when we put it up on the wall, her face lights up, and that's something that you just love to see. And my Father's Day was great. My wife made my favorite meal, and I got to have cheesecake, which is my favorite dessert. And so my kids made me cards, and it was just great all around.
Hey, what was that favorite meal? Come on, you got to tell us now.
Oh, so my favorite meal, well, my wife makes a homemade chicken Alfredo sauce. We have chicken fettuccine, and she makes a homemade sauce, and it's not only my favorite. I call it the family favorite, because with a 4 and 2-year-old, it's very hard to get my family, or my kids, I should say, to all eat the same thing. And so it's just and that's a dish right there that we all can eat the same thing, and we're all happy about it. So
that's great. He is WWE alum Wesley Blake, now known as Westin Blake, Corey Westin. And Corey, now that you're a dad, you have children, you said 2 and you have 1 on the way. What are your thoughts as a dad as far as when they start getting older, and if they say, hey, you know what? You wrestled, we want to do this.
So I'll take what my dad did for me, and if you're passionate about something and you want to do it, you do it. I coming growing up in my family, I had two older brothers and a younger sister, and my parents were always really good about if you're passionate and you love something, go ahead and do it. So I mean, my dad grew up in the horse business. Grew up around horses and stuff like that. So I always grew up on a farm, but that was something that he loved and was very passionate about. With horses and stuff like that. And my mom later on, my mom and dad met in college, and she got pregnant with my oldest brother, and so she, quit college, relatively early, and so she was like helping with the family. But as she got older, her passion was she wanted to be a nurse. So at 40 years old, she started going back to school to become a nurse. And just to see her journey is very inspiring to me. Where, at 40 years old, when my mom and dad divorced, and that was like my mom, and she had two kids, and me and my younger sister. And at times she had to work two jobs, and she was going back to school just to pursue her dream of becoming a nurse. And when you have someone like that in your life, you setting the tone and the motivation and stuff like that. It was very once I was old enough, 18 years old, that's when I was like, you know what, if she's working her tail off in order to provide and also follow her dream of becoming a nurse, then what is to say that I couldn't do the same with me and my passion for wrestling?
It's interesting too, because that inspiration from your mom and that passion, you starred in football back in high school in Texas.
Yeah.
That football. Now I'm in South Florida. You're in Central Florida, but so Florida, South Florida especially, is huge football down here. And I know in Texas, it's even bigger in Texas. Friday Night Lights, the newspapers are digital now. Cover that thing like they're special sections, TV coverage. It's a big time deal. What was it like for you playing high school football in Texas?
Oh man, it was great. I took a lot of what I learned from coaching and stuff, and like having to deal with pressure and stuff like that, and having to multitask with going to school and also being a student athlete and stuff like that. That just helps you carry on with your life. And what I did with wrestling and WWE, NXT, and myself, it was just such a cool feeling. I mean, grew up in a little smaller town, but I mean, those bleachers were filled every Friday night, and with thousands of people coming to watch some high school football. And I was very fortunate enough to be on the varsity at a very early age. My sophomore year, when I was 15, 16 years old, and getting to play out through my senior year. And I look back on that time where it was just a young man trying to come into adulthood. It helps you with responsibilities. It helps you. I grew so much, and like having to work with teammates and stuff like that, and just getting that exposure of maybe like some small town success of people being very proud of you, of doing of you getting accomplishing of what your goals are. And it was always something that I always cherish near dear in my heart.
You did very well with football in high school, and you also went to play football in college.
I didn't play in college. I worked at the strength and conditioning facility at Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas.
With that, and thank you for that, because I didn't know that part of it, and I thought you had played football, so I'm glad we cleared that up. The thing is about that, were the aspirations in high school to play football? I know your aspirations, you wanted to become a professional wrestler, but then did it end after high school? Did you try, or no, you just wanted to go to college?
Well, so I really wanted to wrestle. So once my football and stuff was done, I was talking with my mom, and then, like I said, my mom was kind of going back to school at this time, and she was really wanting me to go to college. She's like, go to college, get your degree. She's like, don't be like me in your 40s having to go back to college now, because it's going to be tough. So she really pushed to college for me. So I was like, okay. And I got a couple of scholarship offers and stuff like that. But with growing up with my mom and my sister, we didn't have the best financially, so stuff like that. So I just decided, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to work so I could put myself through college and that type of stuff. And that's what I did. And during that time, I was trying to learn how to become a professional wrestler any way I could. And so I reached out to Rudy Boy Gonzalez several times there in San Antonio, but we just never got back with each other. I reached out and just something, it just happened to fall through. But luckily enough, during my college, my father was here in Florida, and he was living in Ocala, which he still does today. And that's where Dory and my father met. And that's what kind of got my wheels back rolling on me becoming a professional wrestler again. And, like I said, very fortunate, very lucky that, stuff works out the way it does. So.
It does, because that's so interesting, because obviously hard time, mom and dad split up, but then later on it worked out because here he is in Ocala, which by the way is beautiful, beautiful horse country in Ocala too.
He loves it. Yeah. I mean, because at that time, my dad, that's the reason why he left Texas, because the horsing industry was kind of taking a hit. And so that's why he moved out to Ocala, Florida. And then, I mean, just so happened, I was talking to my dad one day, and he goes, "You'll never guess who I just ran into at the gym." And I was like, "Who?" He's like, "Dory Font Jr." I'm just, no way. Because that's, when I growing up, my dad, my dad grew up on the Von Erichs and the Funks and the Freebirds. Like, my dad grew up on very much like that. So wrestling was always in my household from a very early age and stuff like that. And so and my dad always tells me his grandfather, if he would have known that I would have trained with Dory Font Jr., he'd be rolling over in his grave right now, because he was very much a Von Erichs fan. So he's like, if he would have known that you would have gone to Dory Font for training, he's like, he would have disowned you. So
that was it. But Texas is noted for the Von Erichs and the Funks. So
Yep.
and he was on the Von Erich side, so he wasn't going to have any of that. Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr., none of that. That's so good. He probably would have said, "Where's Kevin Von Erich? You should see if he's to go to Hawaii. Go out there,
right? Yeah.
Kevin, and do something." That's so cool. For you, it must have been then a nice transition, because you had your dad in Ocala. Ocala did have its farmland, its horses, and things like that. Just from that perspective of it, not the pro wrestling, was it an easier transition to make that move?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was able to move in with some family friends, and that really helped out. And I was able to get like a job on a farm and stuff like that to kind of help me, after college and at that time. So, and then, when I got here in Florida, like I said, I graduated Saturday. Sunday, I packed up my truck and I drove, straight to Ocala. First people I met in Ocala were the Funks, to talk to them about starting my training. So, and then that Wednesday, I drove that Sunday. That Wednesday, I started training with them. And so, and it was just great. It was just great to, work with the Funks and just the wealth of knowledge and stuff like that. But like you said, the transition made it easy for me, because I was able to kind of get a job right away to kind of help start paying some bills and stuff like that. And I had a roof over my head, and I wasn't paying out of pocket for like an apartment or anything like that. So there are I was really grateful for a lot of things that it so happened to end that way.
It was just meant to be. It just seems like that path. Who would think that the Funks out of Texas would be in Ocala, Florida, for all places, and that all worked out with everything, like we talked about already. But it's just amazing that worked out. And Marty and Dory Funk Jr. are just the best. They always speak highly of you, not just because you made it in WWE. They appreciated your work ethic and your able transitioning from football to pro wrestling, which, if I'm not mistaken, the Funks were football players, played some college football when they were younger. Dusty Rhodes played college football. Dick Murdoch, Ted DiBiase, a lot of them back in that time played football at some point, made the transition to pro wrestling. What can you share about anything that they may have told you about that, about transitioning from football to pro wrestling?
Well, that's what I mean. You know, back at that time, that was just it was a great transitioning with Dory, because as an athlete, that they just understood the physical aspect and stuff like that. But like not only that, but when people come from athletics, they understand that there's a team, in which wrestling is very much a team. I know there's a lot of individual type stuff, but you know, when you're working with a promotion or a company, you're very much a team, and you know, you're a spoke in the wheel, and like everyone's going around. And so if you work well with the team, you work well with others, and you know, you have the physical aspect and stuff like that, you're not afraid to get hurt, you know, and it just translates a lot from a student athlete to the professional wrestling business. And I think that's why so many do so well coming from college sports and stuff. You know, it's a breed of culture of that type of stuff.
Especially amateur wrestling and college football.
Yeah.
Those two sports, I think, many have transitioned and done well in that regard. Did you ever tell?
Very well.
Did you ever tell Dory and Marty that your granddad was a big Von Erich fan?
I did. Yeah, we did. Yeah. He got a big kick out of it. Yeah, they loved it. You know, that's something that Dory's like, well, he was doing his job right then.
That's exactly right. That's what Dory's great. Dory's great. If he hated me, it's good. That was good. I did my job for him. So, Corey, what did you think when you first started doing the training and just how you progressed and have grown? Were there a couple of things that you were like, wow, man, this is difficult for me to try to do? Or was it pretty steady, the growth process, and be able to just take each phase of it and learn it? Was it I know it's not easy, but was there an easier process for you? Was there some elements of it that were a little more challenging?
With wrestling, I mean, the great thing about it is you're going to work anyone and everyone in all spectrums of wrestling and stuff like that. And so the cool thing about it is like you're always learning to a certain degree. Whether you're in there with, you know, wrestling a WWE Hall of Famer like Dory Funk or Jerry Lawler, or you're in there wrestling someone for the very first time, you know, you always learn things, and that's what the great thing about wrestling is, because it is, to me, it never gets old. It's always some type of it's always fresh to me, whether, you know, you're in there with a new opponent or you're in there with the same opponent that you've wrestled for the past 6 months. And, you know, you can try stuff and do stuff. Very early on in my training, you know, it was just building that callus of, you know, your body going to be sore, and just, you know, and just having to go through these workouts and just making sure, like, you know, I had to switch up my like weight training and stuff like that, because your body was sore from, you know, the last night's workout, and so you can't train like certain ways. So you had to, like, you know, you had to adapt with, you know, certain types of your life and certain types of your training and stuff like that. And that was always the thing with me, was just trying to, how can I have my body the best, feeling the best by the time I get out there and go into the ring. So, but yeah.
Was there a point when you were at the Funkin' Conservatory in Ocala in Central Florida where you were just had a match, and after that match, or maybe a couple of matches, that you were like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm feeling comfortable at it, this is a go, I'm on my way here? Was there a certain point that you got that feeling, or did you always like are questioning yourself?
Well, it's a little bit of both, because, you know, you always kind of question yourself, like, oh, you know, like, you know, that's just always in the back of your mind, like, oh, okay. But I tell you what, we wrestled Jerry the King Lawler, and I mean, I was a nervous wreck, you know, because it was just his first match after having his heart attack and stuff like that. And so, and of course, he's a WWE Hall of Famer. You know, he's a professional in every word of the sense. But I remember going to the building that day, and I was just nervous. I was just like, man, you know, you had that like empty pit stomach, you know, in your gut, and you were just, but then you talk to Jerry, and you talk to him for a little bit, and then he like starts telling you stories, and then like he kind of, you know, just the way he talked, and just like, it was putting my mind at ease. And as he was doing that, he was building my confidence up as he was talking to me. And by the time by the time I went out there to wrestle him, like you would have thought, like in my head, I mean, he talked to me so smooth and with so much confidence that by the time I went out, I felt like I wrestled Jerry, for 5-6 years already, like he was just that good. And it just made me feel that comfortable. And so, and after like talking with him and having that experience, that's where I kind of like, that's what I want to do with people. I want to be in the ring and I want people to be so relaxed or comfortable with me that I can, and that's when, and that's when the transitioning, and that's kind of where you start getting, because after that, like he put, Dory and Marty always put instill confidence in me, because that's the number one thing that you're going to have to do. Because, with wrestling, of course, there's a lot of eyes on you and everyone has an opinion about you. So, your confidence level always has to be, well. And so once I talked to Jerry Lawler, that was a turning point in my head where it's like, oh man, that's, I was just in the ring with a WWE Hall of Famer. Everything went well. I think I can do this. I can do this.
That's an awesome story. And it's so cool.
Yeah.
And we're going to wrap this up because we're just about out of time here. So we have a few more minutes. So I'll ask you some things. If you give me quick answers, if it's okay, we'll try that.
Go ahead.
Buddy Murphy, you and Buddy, NXT Tag Team Champions. What was it like at that? A quick synopsis, I guess, if we can, of that, but also bringing Alexa Bliss into the fold as well. And whose idea was it to get Alexa involved?
So that was a buddy of mine's, that kind of idea of bringing Alexa in there. And so that was a very cool moment where you pitch an idea and they kind of go with it. I mean, of course, they kind of put their own spin on it and stuff like that. They kind of make it their own. But it was just very cool because we did some performance center shows where we like, hey, we would like to have Alexa with us. At the time, Alexa and Buddy were dating and stuff like that. And so there was like, hey, I think we can, this package could work. And we did that on the performance center and stuff like that. And they went with it. And so that's always just a gratifying feeling when they go with like an idea that you kind of help. And winning the tag titles was incredible. I just remember when you get the 1, 2, 3, your mind kind of flashes back of like when you were in diapers, when you had your first wrestle buddy, all the way up to like, being in sports, and then also going, traveling to the funks, and then, doing the, and then fast forward that, all those emotions and everything kind of catches up to you, in that one moment. And it was good because me and Buddy had a great friendship. And so it was good that we got to share that together. I mean, of course, he was coming over from Australia, from a different country, and so it was cool that we got to share that moment together.
You mentioned a favorite wrestling buddy, WWF wrestling buddy, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, or was it something else?
I had both of them. I had Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
Corey, will Sara Lee ever wrestle again?
If the opportunity comes, she can. She did, between after our first and second, she started training again. Of course, with flatbacks with Tyler Breeze and Sean Spears and stuff like that. And never say never, because I mean, there's always a possibility. I think she was great. I think she still can do it. She's strong enough. She's athletic enough. She can do it if she puts her mind to it. And I would love nothing more than to being a tag partner with her as well.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask. Westin Blake and Sara Lee. We got to come up with a name. You got to think of a name. I don't have any names. I didn't come up with anything. All right. All right, we're almost out of time here. Hey, I hope I picked the right team.
I saw
I'm wearing this because of Texas, but I didn't know because
I know I got Texas Rangers.
And if you weren't, that's okay. Were you a Cowboys fan? And if so, did you have a favorite Cowboy, or were you another football team? Did you like another football team?
No. So growing up, my dad was a huge Brett Favre fan, and so we kind of grew up like that. But my team personally, because I was born in Louisiana and I grew up in Texas, so for whatever reason, growing up, since I was born in Louisiana, I was always a New Orleans Saints fan. So that's always been my NFL team, was the New Orleans Saints.
All right, we go with the Saints. You got the Saints and all.
Yeah.
The Drew Brees. And then, well, nowadays we will see what happens. But anyway, all right. So we'll end it with this. Westin Blake, he's doing his thing. Give us some information as far as for any booking information, social media for fans, and when that's all, we'll wrap this up.
Yep. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Westin Blake. Like I said, I got some content coming out that I'll be, the next 3 or 4 weeks. So after about 90 days, I can hopefully hit the ground running. For booking and business inquiries, you can go to bookwestinblake@gmail.com, which also you can find on Twitter and Instagram as well. So yeah, I'm looking after July 16th to kind of hit the ground running and kind of get going out there.
Hey, thank you so much for the time. You go get them.
Thank you.